Ladies and gentlemen, yet another Supreme Court victory for President Trump. He had the Emoluments Clause victory, numerous other victories. He had some defeats as well, setbacks with taxes. By the way, they found nothing after, it's like over a month now. This was the holy grail of Trump corruption, his tax returns. They found absolutely nothing. We haven't heard of anything. How long does it take to look at Trump's taxes? They obsessed over it for 4 years. But anyway, Supreme Court erases ruling against Trump over his Twitter account. This should never have been even an obsession, yet another misguided focus of Democrats. The Supreme Court erased a federal appeals court decision holding that former President Trump violated the Constitution by blocking his critics on Twitter. Twitter is a worthless, vapid platform, cyber reality full of the angriest people spewing only venom and contempt. It is Tron. Remember the movie Tron? It is Tron for apoplectic, seething, fuming, morally superior liberal Democrats. They live in a cyber reality, ideas and fleeting thoughts that would mean nothing in any other platform or venue. Ideas that make no sense. Correlations or analogies or metaphors that would be laughed at. Arguments that are baseless. And arguments where you engage only in hyperbole and absurd leaps of logic. Find a home on Twitter. It's a place where you can lose your job for something you wrote 10 years ago. There's zero benefit. There is zero benefit to being on Twitter. You don't even have to, I think with Instagram, for example, you need to open an Instagram account to see see the pictures of Instagram profiles. You need to actually have an account. You don't need an account on Twitter to see what's going on. If anything, it's already a travesty that news revolves around what someone tweets. And they did with President Trump. He fell into a trap because at first he utilized it to his advantage, but then he fell into this trap where everything he said was sensationalized, and Democrats gained steam, political momentum, enthusiasm that they wouldn't have had if it wasn't for his Twitter platform. So inadvertently, President Trump gave them political momentum by utilizing that platform that, by the way, banned the New York Post for a legitimate story. Could you imagine if Donald Trump Jr. left a laptop full of incriminating emails saying that he brokered deals for Mike Pompeo or Trump's vice president or Trump himself? But anyway, Supreme Court erases ruling against Trump over his Twitter account. I deleted my Twitter account 3 years ago. I deleted my Facebook 3 years ago. I told everyone on this platform, on this channel, I said, delete your Twitter account. I'm not right about everything, okay? But there's some wisdom to what I'm saying. And I'm right about a lot. And I told people, get off of Twitter. There's no reason to be on Twitter. You don't even need an account to actually to actually see what people tweet. But here, the Supreme Court erased a federal appeals court decision holding that former President Trump violated the Constitution by blocking his critics on Twitter. Democratic pundits, politicians do that all the time. The justices vacated the decision from the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and sent it back to the lower court with instructions to dismiss the case as moot or no longer active. Now that Trump is a private citizen, the action means the lower court's decision will no longer bind future judges. The announcement came in an order list and without a written explanation of the court's reasoning. There were no noted dissents. The Supreme Court on Monday erased a federal appeals court decision holding that former President Donald Trump violated the Constitution by blocking his critics on Twitter. Twitter is not it's not a global commons. It's not the justices vacated the decision from the U.S. from the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and sent it back to lower court with instructions to dismiss the case as moot. Okay, so this is a win for President Trump. Is there another country, by the way, that takes cyber reality, that takes Twitter as seriously? If you're watching from another country, the odds are that your country does not, that the media in where you live do not care what a politician tweets. It's only in the United States of America where it's an extension of, it's like the most worthless waste of time that becomes news. Why was Trump's Twitter account so important to morally superior liberal Democrats that viewed him as this despot and authoritarian? First of all, I don't know many despots and authoritarian that are set up and framed by their own intelligence agencies. Usually, despots and authoritarians and totalitarian regimes utilize intelligence services, control the media, buy dossiers to set up and frame their opponents. Usually, these are things that happen to President Trump. So that's number one. I mean, the interesting thing here is that they did not allow him one moment of rest. They even went after him for blocking people on Twitter. Think about that for a second. You think that if Biden were president, or Clinton, and she blocked people on Twitter, do you think that this would be an issue that would eventually reach the Supreme Court? What media does is they create this. It's just unbelievable. Twitter has too much influence in politics. It is a platform that will eventually be the MySpace of political media. There's no benefit, there's no upside to being on Twitter. There's no upside. At least with Facebook. I mean, I don't have Facebook. You should delete your social media accounts. And if you want to keep in touch with people, get their phone numbers, get their email addresses, and you can communicate that way. You don't need to see what they ate for dinner, or pictures of their dog or whatever. Or if you do, that's fine. But I think that the upside to Facebook is, okay, you can keep in touch with people that you haven't, that you can reconnect with people that you haven't been able to talk to for years and years. That's the upside. The downside is you have to be absolutely, there's an absolute onslaught of political bias, and you get into arguments with people because, oh my God, how could you vote for Trump? Oh my God, Bernie Sanders this, and you know what, Biden. It's always an argument. And especially now with everything's polarized, and it wasn't Trump's fault. It was the reaction to President Trump. They didn't give him a moment's rest, and they utilized social media to divide people. So you have every article about Stormy and Avenatti and Michael Cohen and Trump Russia, and and this was when we had record low unemployment. Even when things were going good, it was never enough. He was tearing up the Constitution. And they utilized social media to promote this viewpoint, this cyber reality that the sky was falling, even when a great many people were saying, you know what, if Trump just calmed his personality down, if he just calmed down, we could, he could bask in the glory or really appreciate all the good things that he's accomplished. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what should have happened, which probably would have helped him tremendously. But it even when things were good, social media was pinned against him with, every article out there. He had 92% negative media coverage. So, his decision to block people, it's interesting. The they are always outraged by his Twitter presence. Blocking somebody is actually a good thing. You don't have to deal with that person. I mean, when I had the a Twitter account, I haven't for 3 years, and I suggest you delete yours. It's actually a good thing. You don't have to deal with that person. You don't have to get into a squabble or a debate or an endless beef in cyberspace. But like Trump, he wasn't allowed to because of the Constitution? What? How does that even work? And now the Supreme Court sided in his favor. And it's like, this is what they did. They never gave him a moment's rest. They obsessed and showed this contempt, and they were so shocked and stunned and outraged over everything he stated on Twitter. But then they wouldn't even let him block his Twitter critics, which would have lessened the interaction and mitigated or prevented him from stating things that were offensive or getting into the interactions or the negative interactions. But they wanted that. That's the thing. They wanted President Trump to be on Twitter all the time so they can obsess and be shocked and stunned and outraged. And everything that they claim, like in 2015, President Trump, first of all, allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. The link is below in the description. By the way, hit subscribe to this channel if you want to support my voice long term. My Patreon is below. You could read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, on hagoodman.com. You could see my debates. He did good things. Abraham Accords, first president to step foot in North Korea. We had record low unemployment for a good part of his presidency. The pandemic response wasn't his fault. The Democratic governors dropped the ball. And I love how all of New York and New Jersey, God bless the people of New York and New Jersey, had the worst outcomes. Yet even Andrew Cuomo to this day is being shielded, and you've seen how he's completely disgraced now. No, where are the congressional investigations? Where's the House of Representatives after Cuomo trying to find out how many lives were lost in New York because of his decision to put infected people in elderly care facilities? By one estimate, it's 15,000 people, 15,000 New Yorkers, because Andrew Cuomo put infected people in elderly care facilities. 34% of all the lives lost have been in elderly care facilities in this country. That's not Trump's fault. That's not, and they keep on, the way, what they do is this broad propaganda spin, nothing specific, but the allegations and the accusations and what they level at him. His pandemic response, hey, if he had a better response, lives could have been saved. You could say that about every Democratic governor. 7 Democratic states account for over 40% of all the lives lost. 1 out of 5 people, or around 1 out of 5, who've lost their lives are in either New York or California. Okay, and New York has one of the highest per capita rate in the country. So this is not Trump's fault. But anyway, hit subscribe right now. Twitter is the worst platform known to men. It is the absolute biggest waste of time. And it's really the only thing Democrats have. The Democratic Party, the brand of the Democratic Party is incremental change, and we're slightly more liberal than Republicans. That's not enough. They need to focus on topics like race and Trump's words and social media algorithms and hyping up Trump Russia and Zelensky, he pressured Ukraine president and all of these fabricated hoaxes. Because when it comes to their policies, there's no Medicare for all, there's no Green New Deal legislation, there's no universal basic income, there's none of the policies that the far left or the left wants that really gets people excited on the left. So they have to focus on everything else, and Twitter is the perfect platform. The perfect platform for AOC. She was elected to implement Medicare for all. Now she's giving lectures on semantics. You can't say this word. If you say this word, it's linked to this thought process, and this thought process is very bad, and you don't want to be bad, so don't utter this word. Because, so, like, The last person the last person on the planet I would need moral guidance from is AOC, or any Democrat for that matter. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. I will be back in a couple of